Today's edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were bringing you lasted for farming sources and information sponsored by AgriGold. We're glad you're here for today. I am Cesar Delgado. I am your host of today's program. This week is the National Cattle and Beef Convention in San Antonio, Texas. Their top priority is the trade and government affair with the grazing in the West. And next week is Illinois Soybean Summit will be held in Champaign at the I Hotel, and also the National Farm Machinery Show in Louisville, Kentucky. A lot of trade shows go to. We were joining with Aaron Jurgen from Iowa Pork Association. He is a pork producer in Iowa and part of the Iowa Pork Association. Then we were talking about the commodities and ag economic with Dr. Franklin from the University of Missouri. We'll have a conversation about the grains markets for today with Greg Johnson from TGM. This is your rural news sponsored by AgriGold in Central Illinois. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins is confirmed by the Senate. She will be first female agriculture secretary. Next week will be the World Supply and Demand Report. However, it will be not intended for the numbers on the report from USDA. The Purdue University Barometer is optimization of the weight on the tariffs and ag economic, commodity prices, equipments. It is still down since January. This been your rural news on Back Roads of Illinois. This is your commodity markets for this afternoon, sponsored by Kyle Bumstead. He's your commodity broker from Allendale Incorporated. Corn futures is down at 3 to 6 cents. Soybean futures is down at 5 to 10 cents on the quarter. Chicago wheat is down at 8 to 6 cents. Let's take a look for the livestock markets. Cattle is up at 5 to 4 cents. Feeder cattle is up at 4 to 5 cents. Lean hogs is up at 3 to 5 cents. This been your commodity markets for this afternoon. We were joining with Aaron Jurgen from Iowa Pork Association. He is a pork producer in Iowa and part of the Iowa Pork Association. Let's discuss about your operation. What part of Iowa you are?
I'm in west central Iowa, Carroll, Iowa, right between right on Highway 71 and 30.
What is generation of the farm?
I'll be third. So my grandfather, father, then me.
Let's discuss about what is your thoughts on Prop 12 for your operation?
Prop 12, we have some Prop 12 pigs in our operation. You work through them. It'd be nice to get the farm bill with a fix for Prop 12 in that, so that way it would be much more clear on how to operate in the future.
Can you tell us what's impact on the issue for your operation?
Um, I just grow out pigs, so there's not a whole lot of difference for me. But for the sow units, where they require a larger footprint for the animals to move around, that is where the largest impact would be, is on the sow units.
Of course. Aaron, could you tell us about the hogs markets? What are your thoughts?
Hog markets for 2025 are favorable, lower input costs. Exports are continue to remain stable, and consumer demand is stable with the United States. So the pork markets are not negative for the year.
Do you have any concerns about the Packers?
Packers are financially stable. They're running at a good clip. They're out looking for pigs, so that's good. That means everything's stable. So a good relationship with the Packers, favorable relationship. So nothing to worry about on the relationship with Packers.
Do you have any concerns about labor, which is a bigger issue for right now?
Yeah, labor is always a concern. I mean, no matter if you have abundant labor or not abundant labor, just getting good quality workers consistently is always a challenge, no matter what industry you're in. So just making sure we have good people doing the right thing every single day is important. So
Do you have any final thoughts on the hogs markets?
no, just we'll see how there's been some tariff action going on possibly where there's been some just speak. So that's caused some action in the markets. But it sounds like they got that kind of on a hold for now. So it's going to be a interesting year with the news headlines. So I think news is going to move the markets a lot. So instead of fundamentals, so we'll manage things as we go through. But it's going to be an exciting year.
Do you have any concerns about these tariffs?
Any change is something to just to pay attention to. You know what I mean? As things change, we're gonna have to roll with things. So there's always so much we can manage through. So we'll as things come through, we'll make do and do the best we can with what we have.
Thanks, Aaron. I enjoyed our conversation for today.
Me too.
This is Aaron Jurgen from Iowa Pork Association on Back Road. We'll have a conversation about the grains markets for today with Greg Johnson from TGM. Greg, how is the cash corn markets in central Illinois? Could you tell us about it?
The farmers are very happy to have seen the rally in corn ever since the January USDA crop report that surprised a lot of people by taking 4 bushels to the acre off the national corn yield and tightening up the ending stocks from 1.9 billion to 1.5 billion. We've seen a nice rally in the futures market, and the farmers have really sold into that rally, so much so that we've seen basis levels weaken probably by a dime in the corn market, and close to that in the soybean market as well. So farmers are definitely taking advantage of this rally. By our estimation, we think farmers are probably 75 to 80% sold on old crop corn, taking advantage of this rally. So farmers really have enjoyed selling corn over the last 3 weeks.
Do you have any concerns about the tariffs for the cash markets?
I think everybody has concerns about the tariffs. It's such a big unknown. We just don't know. We'd like to think that the United States is using the threat of tariffs as a negotiating tactic in order to get some more cooperation from Mexico, Canada, the European Union, and China. It seems to have worked to some extent with Mexico and Canada. They have agreed to put more troops at the borders and try to work with the United States. but they're smaller countries. The bigger question, I think, with the tariffs, the big unknown is how will China respond? China is a huge country. How will they respond to tariffs if, in fact, they stay in force? And so, yeah, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty when it comes to tariffs here in the countryside, for sure.
Of course, Greg. Tariffs, that is, there anything that is going to have a conversation with farmers, Greg? Tariffs, that is, there anything that is going to have a conversation with farmers, Greg?
Yeah, the tariffs have got farmers concerned. They're not sure. Nobody is sure. I'm not even sure President Trump is sure how it's all going to play out. So one day we get stories that maybe there's going to be some cooperation and the prices work a little bit higher. And then the next day, it doesn't sound quite as friendly, and we give back what we gained the previous day. So we're seeing a lot of back and forth in the markets, a lot of uncertainty, and that's making it hard for farmers to decide exactly how to market this crop.
Are you talking about that with farmers at your office?
Oh, yes. That's probably the first question they ask is, what have we heard about the tariffs and what impact will the tariffs have on prices? And I wish I knew the answer to that, but I don't, like I said, I don't think anybody knows the answer to that for sure. So we're just kind of playing it on a day-by-day basis at this point.
True. What do you recommend for the premium for the grains markets?
I think you have to look at the upside potential versus the downside risk. And with corn, there's probably still more upside potential. Soybeans, maybe not as much. Number one, if we do have a trade war, China could probably retaliate. In the past, they've retaliated by putting tariffs on our soybeans, and we've knocked a couple dollars off the price of beans back in 2018. Corn has a little bit more bullish news or supportive news supporting it. Not only do we have the extremely tight stocks at 1.5 billion, but we have the safrinha corn crop in Brazil probably 2 weeks behind normal. They're trying to get soybeans harvested and then double crop corn after that. But due to the wet weather in northern Brazil, they're not able to get their corn or their beans out in a timely fashion like they have in the past. And so that means they're probably going to get the double crop corn planted 2 to 3 weeks later than normal. They can still have a good crop, but it just raises the risk that later planted corn will pollinate and fill during their drier part of the growing season instead of the wet season. So I think for all those reasons, there's a little bit more reason to be optimistic on corn prices.
What is the technical aspects on the cash grains, Greg?
The market is entering some overbought conditions. We've had such a rally, primarily due to a lot of the funds. The speculative funds, own 380,000 contracts of corn. Their all-time record is 400,000 contracts. That's 2 billion with a B, 2 billion bushels of corn that they own on paper. At some point in time, the funds will sell that corn, and that would put pressure on the market. That may not happen for several months, but that's something to keep in mind. So we are approaching some overbought conditions, and farmers probably want to have their offers in. I think that's a good strategy, is to have offers in with what you want to get sold.
Do you have any final thoughts on the corn markets?
I think farmers want to have offers in. Like I say, I think we're okay for another 4 to 6 weeks, but when that March 31 acreage report comes out, it could show that the U.S. farmer is planning on planting a lot more corn than what we did last year, and the markets may take us a little bit of a sell-off after that March 31 acreage report comes out. So we're still 6 weeks away from that, so we've got some time, but I think farmers probably want to get offers in to get whatever corn they want to get sold prior to that March 31 acreage report.
How complex between January report to the planting intention report? How complex between January report to the planting intention report?
How complex? I guess I'm not sure what you're asking, Caesar.
How complex between January report to the planting intention report?
There's about a 10-week window there between the January 10th report and then the March 31 acreage report. So we're probably 3 weeks into that 10-week window. So there's another 6 or 7 weeks before we know what that acreage report will say. That's a survey that the USDA takes on around March 1 and then releases the results on March 31. So like I say, we probably need 94 million acres of corn to meet the demand. We've been using 15.1 billion bushels of corn. So we probably need to get 94 million acres of corn planted. Last year, we only planted 90.5 million acres. So the function of the market over the next 6 or 7 weeks is probably to keep the price high enough to encourage farmers to plant more corn than they did last year. And we'll find out on March 31 whether, in fact, they did or not.
Thanks, Greg. This is Greg Johnson from TGM on Back Roads of Illinois. We were talking about the commodities and ag economic with Dr. Franklin from the University of Missouri.
Hi, Cesar. It's a pleasure to be here.
Franklin, what is your thoughts on these cattle markets with the feeder cattle?
Yeah, so the recent USDA inventory report in general confirms expectations of year-over drops across most inventory cattles and inventory categories. And so the expectation is going to be, tighter supplies and supporting good prices for the foreseeable future here over the next year.
What happened to the cattle expansion?
Yeah, so it's not looking like we'll see expansion going on soon. Kind of the two, I guess, bigger surprises, if there were any, in the report would be that both beef and dairy replacement heifers were down nearly 1% from a year ago, each falling below the pre-report expected ranges, which had actually implied increases on average. And so with that and the percentage of heifers, the percentage of cattle in feedlot that are heifers being around 38%, that still suggests that producers are not retaining heifers to build back the cow herd.
Of course.
Other somewhat surprise was that the calf crop at 33.5 million head, while not matching the average expected decline of 1.5%, is still below a year ago, which does remain bullish for feeder calf prices in the near term and fed cattle prices down the line.
What is the import numbers to Mexico and China with grains and meats?
Yeah, so of course we're talking some of the countries here that we do much of our ag commodity trade with here, our neighbors to the north and south in China, and of course that all ties into the discussion of the tariffs that's being proposed. And while China's purchases of U.S. corn are maybe down a bit compared to the past, other traditional buyers like Colombia, Japan, Korea, and Mexico are showing increased demand, and so all four of those are at levels that are quite a bit higher than what we've seen them in the past. So that's good news on the corn demand side. Um, while purchases by some of the major buyers of U.S. beef, such as Japan, South Korea, China, and Canada, are lower for 2024 than they were in 2023. Mexico is 9% higher for the year. And the data on November beef exports suggests that only Japan and Canada are actually down for the month and by less than 1% each. So that suggests that maybe we're seeing a little bit of a spurt in export demand, which is interesting because we're seeing the exports remain strong despite a strong U.S. dollar and high beef prices. Too sure here. I mean, it's
Do
looking
you
like
have any final thoughts on the tariffs for cattle?
yeah. So I mean, that's in general for all the ag commodities that we trade with Mexico and Canada and U.S. The tariffs could come into play related to the flow of feeder calves coming back into the U.S. Uh, if a 25% tariff was to go in place, I would think that would, limit that flow of cattle as well. But we're already, of course, seeing that President Trump is looking for ways to pull back on that, as long as maybe they work with us on some border issues. And in that case, that could lead to us having similar numbers come in to the U.S. in the past, as far as feeder cattle, for instance.
This is Dr. Franklin from the University of Missouri on back roads of Illinois.
Thanks, Cesar. Sorry, I didn't.
Thanks to Aaron Jurgen from Iowa Pork Association and Dr. Franklin from the University of Missouri, Greg Johnson from TGM. This been Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. You have a great day.